Yes, the first session we will be having is on enabling e-payments in Indonesia through shared infrastructure. That will be in parallel with another session on e-signature, masa depan dari sebuah kontrak, or e-signatures, the future of contracts. For your information as well, we are only able to live stream session 2 on e-signatures on CIPS YouTube channel. So if you know anybody who is wanting to join session 1 on e-payments, they will have to register and enter this Zoom webinar. I also need to share a few important notes regarding the sessions. If you would like to follow the session on e-payments, please add to your screen name. So on the participant list, you will see your screen name and edit your name with R1. So that's R1. So this is so my colleague can identify you as wanting to join this session. The e-payment session is also being held in this room, so technically you do not need to switch rooms later. For the e-payment session as well, it will also be conducted in English, but we are providing live audio interpretation into Bahasa Indonesia. If you would like to follow the e-signature session, please edit your Zoom name with R2. So that's R2. And you will be redirected to a different virtual room. Okay, I hope that was clear. Before we go into the different sessions, I would first like to introduce two of our session moderators and my fellow CIPS, CIPS colleagues, Dina and Galuh, who are both researchers here at the Center for Indonesian Policy Studies. And I will actually pass the mic over to Dina now.
Thank you, Mbak Antia, for the time. Good afternoon to all the panelists and participants of the webinar 6, the last webinar in the Digital Week 2020. And as Mbak Antia already mentioned before, that we will have 2 breakout sessions. So I will introduce the panelists for the breakout session 1. Originally, we will have 4 panelists there, but unfortunately, Mr. Rico, Vice Chairman of Indonesian Payment System Association, or ASPI, has sudden engagement, so he will not joining us today. However, we still have 3 important panelists here for the breakout session 1. The first one would be Mr. Agung Purwoko, the Principal Economist of Payment System Policy Department, Central Bank of Indonesia, and Ms. Adama Dialog, Head of the Partnerships of Next Billion Users Initiative, Google and Board Founding Member of Mojalu Foundation, and Mr. Costa Peric, Deputy Director of Financial Services of Payment System Policy Department. For the poor of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As for the breakout session 1, the panelists will be Mr. Marshall Pribadi, CEO of Privy ID, Mr. Jonathan Tarigan, Head of System Management Section, Electronic Certification Center of National Cyber and Crypto Agency, and Mr. Bernardus Billy from Partner of Mix and Partners Law Firm. So my colleagues Galuh will lead the short introduction by the panelists. So I'm handing over the floor to Galuh.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Dina. And just like she already said, before we begin the breakout sessions, we would like to invite all the speakers to present a short introduction or a brief statement to the topic that you would like to present later in the breakout room. Just a very short speech with maximum duration of 2 minutes only. Our intention is that we hope the participants will have a better understanding of the topic of e-transactions, and also which include e-payment and also e-signature. And partly also because in the end, we will get back to this main room to hear the conclusion from the 2 rooms. So I humbly ask your time for the short statement speech for our dear speakers. I hope you don't mind. And for e-payment session, allow me to first invite Pak Agung to deliver his short speech. You may use bahasa, Pak, as there will be an interpreter provided for audio interpretation.
Thank you, Mbak Galuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for CIPS for inviting Bank Indonesia to share our views on digital economy. My role in Bank Indonesia is a principal economist and also the project management office for Blueprint Indonesian Payment System 2025. In my opinion, this topic is very relevant, both electronic payment and also a signature for digitalization in Indonesia. As we know, the digital era gave birth to new connected world. People now always on, 24/7 connected to the world, and a growing number of devices are linked. And in financial service industry, digitalization opened wide doors for economic and financial inclusion. Some people said digitalization also support democratization. Of course, this is a good news for Indonesia, where 51% of adult population has not been exposed to banking services. However, digitalization also changed the risk landscapes at the same time. We now face new risks, old risks in a new form, and also unknown risks. Therefore, for central banks, new horizon of challenge need new roles and policy framework. We need to strike the right balance between innovation and risk. Therefore, Central Bank of Indonesia launched Indonesian Payment System Blueprint 2025. This blueprint will serve a strong foundation for implementing Bank Indonesia initiative with government, both the central government and regional government. That's my opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Agung. Next on the line is Ms. Adama. The Zoom is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for CIPS for having us here today. My name is Adama and I lead partnerships for the Next Billion User team for Africa in Google. The Next Billion User team is the team in Google that focuses on building and products when thinking first about the next generation of internet users. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today and have the opportunity to discuss the power of digital payments through more access to finance and shared infrastructures for economies like Indonesia. Often recognized as a sustainable business opportunity for financial service providers, but there are myriads of benefits that I'm looking forward to discuss today with my co-panelists for consumers, merchants, bank, governments, which can transform the economic potential of emerging economies. In general, we tend to see it from that angle, and it's not really natural to think of access to finance as an opportunity to boost investment and productivity, reduce corruption and poverty, and also even empower women. And so thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Adama. And next, can I ask Mr. Costa Peri? The floor is yours now.
Thank you, Magalu. Hello, everyone. My name is Costa Peric, working at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We believe that an economy that includes everyone benefits everyone. And so we work with governments, central banks, private sector, in many countries, including Indonesia, to help connect and serve the estimated 1.7 billion people still not benefiting from any financial service. And I will show you later a framework that we use as we work with central banking governments to assist in this endeavor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Costa Peri. And now we move to our speakers for e-signature sessions. Pak Marshall Pribadi, do you mind to start first? The floor is yours now.
Our economies are going digital in the past decade, and it is inevitable that we need to have transaction evidence at least as strong as when we were still using hard copy and papers. You know why we were being asked to sign numerous documents when we open up bank accounts or when we apply for loans, credit card applications, insurance, everything, even your gym membership, right? The purpose of signature is first to make sure that we cannot deny that we have signed a certain document. And secondly, it is to make sure that every change is made to the document content after being signed by both parties could be identified. So when we sign on a hard copy paper using a pen, and then you say, Your Honor, this is not my signature, then this hard copy paper could be brought to the forensic labs compared to my other signature samples with graphology, and it could determine this is your signature, so I cannot deny it. So if both parties have signed, let's say, a loan agreement, it says 5 million, I will repay next week, then we make changes, there will be visual marks, such as crossings, tip X, stuff, right? So that's why we were using the handwritten signature in the past centuries. But when we move to digital environment using digital documents, we cannot use the same principle of using, let's say, handwritten signatures. Moreover, just using like clicking the tick box that I agree to the terms and conditions, because those two functions of signatures that traditionally works in the hard copy paper is not working on the electronic environment. For example, if we ask our counterpart to draw their handwritten signature on like a tablet or a smartphone, then it will only become like another digital image, which could easily be cropped, could easily copy pasted to numerous documents. So it's very easy for us to deny that, Your Honor, this is not my this might look like signature, but I wasn't the one who put it on this document. And then any changes made on paper could be identified visually, but on a digital document, you could just Photoshop it, 5 million into 3 million, 7% into 12%, and it's smooth. Then you could PDF it again, lock it for editing. The images of the signature of the counterparts are still there, but the content changes is identified. That's why e-signature is important to ensure that the function of signatures in hard copy paper could be met, in which the method today, the best practice is digital signature using asymmetric cryptography and we'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Thank you Pak Marsal for your speech. And the next is Pak Jonathan. Silakan Bapak.
Okay, first I would like to thank our fellow in CIPS for inviting us. As a part of government, our main goal is to acknowledge every technology and policies that we need to be able to use in the government body to adopt the newest policy regarding what kind of situation and political and economic strategy around the world. Now, regarding for the e-signature, we already started in Indonesia about 2010, and then in my office building, we have already about 390 institution bodies that was cooperating with us in the term of e-service and e-signature services. And then I think that there's a lot of peak in this COVID for the 2 months behind. It's about, I think, about 1,000% in increasing for the usage of e-signature in the government bodies. But I think for the most part is if government bodies acknowledge how e-signature works, then we can assure that in the future that e-contract is just ahead of a start. So we can acknowledge that we will be able to adopt all the maybe like EDIS regulation in Europe as soon as possible, because we don't know what kind of challenge in the next future our country we're going to face to. That's it.
Thank you very much, Pak Jonathan. And last but not least, Pak Billy, the Zoom is yours now. Only 2 minutes ya, Pak. Terima kasih.
Yeah, thank you very much, Galuh. So happy to be here. Thank you very much for my friend in CIPS for inviting me here. So I'm Billy. I'm the partner in Marcus and Partner. We are also the head of startup fintech and venture capital practice group in Marcus. So we have been helping a lot of startups and establishing the business in Indonesia within this uniqueness and digitalization, right, in Indonesia, and identify how to invest and how to determine the license and so on and so on. So in the past like 3 years, we have been continuously and consistently push and helping a lot of startups to do the digitalization in Indonesia, right? Because if you're talking about the e-signature, the regulation has been there actually from 2008, the IT law, right? It mentioned the e-signature, but it's slowly progressing, right? Because everybody like, yeah, if you can sign it hard copy, why do need to sign it in soft copy, right? Because it's more assurance. But at this time, at this unfortunate COVID period, which we don't know until when, the digitalization is being pushed. Like Pak Jonathan said, it's increasing like 100 or 1,000%. It's the needs right now, right? So it's inevitable, like Pak Marshall said. So it's something that's worth to think about right now to move not only the startup kind of business or the digital e-commerce kind of business into the e-signature or fintech, but it's also to the conventional one, right? So I think this is something inevitable, and really happy to be here. We'll discuss about it in more detail later. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Billy, and thank you very much for all the speakers for the short speeches. Hopefully it would encourage further discussions in the parallel sessions. And so yeah, I guess it is now the time for us to split the discussions into 2 groups. As mentioned earlier by the MC, for those who haven't chosen the room, please rename your display Zoom name. If you want to join e-payment sessions, please add R1. And for those who want to join e-signature sessions, please add R2 before your name. Just click the 3 dots at the far right corner of your profile and then select rename. And again, as a reminder, we will only have 50 minutes for the discussion. So yeah, I wish you all a fruitful discussions and see you in 50 minutes.
Okay, hello everyone. So before we start, first I would like to remind you that we provide English in Indonesia and Indonesian to English audio interpreter. So if you need a translation into Bahasa Indonesia, for speakers who are presenting in English, you will have to click the Chinese language option below. Because unfortunately, Zoom does not offer Bahasa in their language option list, so we have to use the Chinese option for now. The same option is also available in reverse. So if a speaker is presenting in Bahasa Indonesia and you would like to translate into English, you can click on the English option. And as for the question, you can type it in the chat box here below as well. So I will start the breakout session 1. So the digital payment have been driving much of the digital economic growth and financial inclusion in Indonesia. However, the payment ecosystem remains lacking a shared financial infrastructure that will allow interoperability between different payment system providers and drive more adoption and innovation to merchants and consumers. In light of this, the Central Bank of Indonesia has developed Indonesia Payment System Blueprint 2025. More work and collaboration need to be done to achieve the intended vision. This session will discuss the challenges and opportunities to further drive digital payments innovation in Indonesia. Since we have only 3 panelists, so I will give some flexibility on the presentation time from the original 7 minutes to in between 7 to 9 minutes for the respective panelists. So without further ado, I will give the time to Mr. Agung to start presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Dina. Please, Pak Bedur, share the presentation. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, all the participants. Today, I will share regarding the Indonesian Payment System Reform 2025. It covers industry restructuring, infrastructure, and regulatory landscape. Okay, next. Today, I will share around 3 parts. The first, I will focus on digitalization and inclusive opportunities, and I also, second, I also focus on the essence of the Indonesian Payment System Blueprint 2025, and the last part, I will focus on the CRIS as a the first entry of this blueprint. In this slide shows that digitalization opens vast opportunities for inclusivity in Indonesia. As you can see that in part of inclusivity, Indonesia have a demography bonus. We have 269 million people, and most of the people is in the Gen Y population, which is around 59%, and Gen X population around 40%. Of course, this is most prospective for digitalization. And when in terms to unbanked people, in this graph, we can see that Indonesia is also still lower than other countries. It's lower in other countries. And in terms of small, medium, and small enterprise, we still have 62 million SMEs. And how? And the question is how the new players respond, and how digitalization offer the opportunities to the demography bonus, unbanked people, and SME. We can see in the data. Okay, we look at the Gojek. Gojek, we know for Indonesia, Gojek is the one of the biggest ride-hailing. They have around 430,000 active merchants, and they also have millions of drivers, and also same with a Grab also, and we can also if we explore the Shopee is one of the big e-commerce. They also have 2.5 million sellers with potential buyer over 71 million viewers. So all of the numbers shows that fintech and commerce can open inclusive opportunities, and also the expansion of inclusiveness marked by vast network built by some major fintech and e-commerce. So it confirms that Indonesia have opportunities both from the supply side and also in demand side. Okay, next slide. In the next slide shows that this is the trend of competition and collaboration. In the left graph, it shows that this is the new players, fintech. Fintechs offer ecosystem as solution with the new business models and collaboration with ecosystems. They can offer the better and better service to the customer. It is the center of the fintech. You know, we now it's usual for us to find non-bank electronic money provider like Aja, OVO, Dana, GoPay, and Shopee Pay, and they serve as the mover for other ecosystem like ride-hailing, e-commerce, logistics, lending and payment gateway, and also the restaurant. So they give the solution, that they not only give the product, but they offer the solution, and they break the industry. They break the industry. 5 years ago, in terms of financial service industry, they are still child. We also not, still know that the bank is the biggest player. But now, in the electronic money industry, two of five the electronic money provider is come from the non-bank electronic money provider. So this is it reflects, it showed huge industrial restructuring. And so we move to the next graph. So how bank respond to this phenomena. At first, banks still have lack in transform its model. It's okay because bank is a very heavy regulated, and also they have a legacy system, and they also have governance system, which it's not easy to change, easy to respond to the change. But right now we see the bank also respond. Bank also transform its business model. The bank now start to leverage open API solution. They start to leverage application. They also collaborate with the fintechs. They also produce. They also create new services. New services. They collaborate. They make a venture capital to finance the fintech. They learn, and so on. So we see that a competitive landscape is changed. Next. So how central bank respond to this phenomena? Last year on May 2019, central bank launched Indonesian Payment System Vision 2025. It consists of five vision. We want to strike the right balance between innovation and risk, between old players and new players, in order to navigate Indonesia into new digital economy. It consists of five vision. In first vision, focus on the integration of national digital economy and finance. Why it matters? Because it will assuring the proper functioning of central bank mandate in money circulation, monetary policy, and financial system stability, and as well as financial inclusion. So,
sorry, Pak Agung, to remind
yes.
you, yeah, so the time will be 1 minute more.
Okay. So it consists five: integration national economy, and the second vision is focus on the banking industry. The banking should transform itself, because Indonesia consists 80% of bank, 80% of financial asset is on the bank. So bank must transform. And number three, it assure interlink between bank and fintech is new players. Number four, IPS strike the balance between innovation and risk. And five, because digitalization create no border, so we emphasize that IPS 2025 safeguard national interest in cross-border use of digital and economic finance. Next. So here it is how to implement the vision. We create five main initiatives. One, open API standard with focus on standardization of open API. Number two, retail payment system will focus on payment infrastructure that is interoperable and interconnected. Number three, financial market infrastructure. Number four, the data is essential. That's why we will use the data as a public infrastructure. Data cannot hold by one institution and two institutions. Data should be public goods. And number five, we modernize the regulation, the supervision, and also regulation supervision, and also how the licensing. So this is the vision. This is the vision, and how Bank Indonesia implement the vision. Okay, maybe I will stop here. Maybe we can now explore in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Agung, for your presentation, especially on the Indonesian payment system blueprint that is expected to navigate and orchestrate the development on the digital era. So our second panelist will be Ms. Adama from the Module Foundation. So please, Adama, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you very much. I can't see the slides. Is anyone presenting them? Okay, thank you. As I said, my name is Adama, and I'm part of the Next Billion User team at Google. So just to, the continuity of what Sir Ongun was saying, despite an increased penetration of e-commerce, shared economy services and wallets that he shared with us, that have heavily contributed from moving people from offline to using online payment solutions, paying people without cash is still very challenging, and we still have almost 2 billion people that are financially excluded, despite digital maturity in some countries. So in the case of Indonesia, it's one of the most connected population globally, and yet we only have 49% of people that have access to formal financial services. Yet that one can argue that the number is still good, indeed, compared to countries like Pakistan or Bangladesh. But however, it is still below other countries in the region, such as Thailand and Malaysia. So there is an opportunity for us to work together and make this shift happen. We can move to the next slide. And what we want, like the lack of interoperability and the cost of and complexity of building interoperable system is largely the cause of the problem. Mobile wallets and the shared services that we were referring to just before have tried to make cashless transactions easier, but they're often isolated from mainstream financial providers like banks and mobile financial services. And they ended up creating silos and putting a limit on the potential transaction and revenues too. And all this led to providers often ending up charging high transaction fees or not building anything for developing markets. You can move to the next slide. And Mr. Perick mentioned this in the introduction, and McKinsey calculate the widespread use of digital finance being able to boost annual GDP for all emerging economies by almost $4 trillion by 2025. It's a 6% increase versus a business as usual scenario. It's an unprecedented opportunity for all of us. And think of the impact of additional investment from a broader financial inclusion and more people and micro and small and medium-sized businesses being able to be added to the economy. And to Sir Ongun's slides before, like we're talking about 62 million SMEs potentially being added into the ecosystem. And if we could build an infrastructure that could connect everyone and connect the dots. If you move to the next slide, at Google, we believe in RTP systems, real-time payment networks. There are the rails for modern payment infrastructure with a minimum friction for all parties that are involved. And they're gaining momentum. And since 2014, we've seen a 4x global adoption increase in this space. And they fundamentally change how payments are made and provide the right foundations for innovation and building new services and features for all the ecosystem, especially the local developers and fintech, which in the case of Indonesia have, completely passed that phase. And I guess it's more about working together and connecting those dots with the right interoperable infrastructure. If you move on to the next slide, and being able to move to to real-time payment networks. Different approaches have been used globally, but adoption at scale has been in India, where we have 1.3 billion monthly transactions happening on the UPI network. And since launching their ambitious plan to use digital payments to transform their banking system, the country's RTP system is now one of the world's leading models. And I just wanted to share here from a Google perspective, as some of you might know, we were quite involved. And some of the key learning that we have seen is the fact that access to the platform was free, and they had one single API, and the authentication of users were happening on the tech player surface, which really allowed more a better user experience. And the key item that I really wanted to highlight here was the adoption piece, which really played a big part in the massive adoption that we've seen. So the decision to include third parties in the business model was key to see this growth and has helped spur innovation and adoption at a massive scale. And this one is, and PISP is one of the functionalities that we are all working together on the Moja Loop side to see how we can get it integrated into the Moja Loop platform. Can move into the next slide. And in addition to enabling the payment ecosystems, getting developers and fintechs involved and banks, everyone working together, we believe in good and inclusive payment systems, which I am sure Costa will cover at length. But at Google, we also believe in the fact that payment should be instantaneous. They should not take 2 to 5 business days to reach the user, the payee. Payment should be pushed, not pulled from payer to payee, and consumers should have varying levels of KYC depending on the level of risk. And this is very critical for when we're building good and inclusive payment networks. You can move on to the next slide. So as I said, we believe in RTP networks, and that's why we recently joined the Moja Loop Foundation to help accelerate their adoption globally. And Moja Loop is a free open source payment platform that the ecosystem players can use as a whole, adapt it, or use it as a reference model when building their infrastructures. If you move on to the next slide, the open source nature of the platforms come with a lot of benefits, such as scalability, standardization for the whole set of participants. And if anyone builds, for example, if let's say a country like Indonesia use it and build a specific feature that is very specific to Southeast Asia and accept to make it available for other countries in the region, then that's a possibility. And I think we think it's critical for emerging economies. So whenever we build for one, we could be able to be in a situation where we benefit everyone. And it also allows companies like us, where we do a lot of security fixes, as you know, in the open source space, to be able to just innovate and fix security problems on platforms at scale. So that's what we, and so adopting an open source platform like Moja Loop for a country like Indonesia would allow involvement in the source code and influence on the platform product strategy, and also have the ability to innovate for Indonesia and beyond. Happy to discuss this a little bit more in the discussion later. And if you move to the next slide, I think basically what we're envisioning is the value of all the value of mobile money. So example, developers could be able to build B2B payroll processing systems that allows companies to pay semi-formal employees right in their mobile wallets. Governments could use Moja Loop to deliver support payment to citizens right into their mobile wallet. Having real-time payments means having it on their phone instantaneously, and not having to pay also significant fees to send money to our relatives when they live in rural areas, and having consumers being able to pay businesses quickly and easily when transacting. And if you move to the last slide, and I think, yeah, at Google, Our vision is to really build inclusive access to information and economic opportunity. And we work on the NBU team more specifically, we work on product designs for the next generation of internet users, first in mind, including the payment space. We've seen the success in India in uplifting an ecosystem when enabling payments, and want to share our experience with other emerging economies to help accelerate the digital transformation process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adama, for your presentation, especially on the comprehensive message on RTP, the Foundation for Interoperability, and how it can contribute to the inclusive access to information and economic opportunity. So our last but not least panelist would be Mr. Costa Peric. I would like to welcome you to present your message here. So the Zoom is yours.
Thank you, Dina. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
I hope. Yes. So just a second. I'm not seeing myself, my screen. Okay. So what I wanted to share is the framework that we use in, as I mentioned, working with central banks and governments in assisting them rolling out digital payment platforms in service of financial inclusion. And I'm pleased to report that I will use many of the same words that Bapak Agung Purwoko used in his presentation, very much aligned. I will just walk this quickly through this framework. Going from the bottom to the top, we have 4 areas of attention that need work: rules, rails, accounts, and applications. Now, rules and rails are typically in the collaborative space, where the industry, the central bank in the lead, and the banks, the digital financial services providers, collaborate to build a level playing field that allows competition above the platform on the accounts and applications. The important part to get right is the rules or regulations. And the key success factor here is to establish a level playing field, because it is important to include the non-bank and digital service providers into the picture so that they can connect and serve the populations that are currently unbanked. It is a different business model. It is a different target market that is not very familiar to traditional banks. So it's important to establish this collaborative aspect where other service providers can connect and reach the poorest. The second important part of the collaborative space is the rails. Adama has mentioned that what is needed is a payment platform that implements real-time push payments, because that is the lowest cost, most efficient way that mimics the cash in a digital form, and that the poor people will trust. Examples of, just to give you a few examples so that from elsewhere that illustrate what real-time push payment platforms is. Notably, the UPI platform in India is one example of this. Jomo Pay in Jordan is another platform. Pakistan's central bank is busy building a platform called MPG that we are helping with, that will be active early next year. So these are the type of payment platforms that are efficient in connecting and serving the poor. These examples that I mentioned, they have used their own technology in-house technology to implement this real-time payment platform. But I want to mention that the Mojaloop open source software that Adama has mentioned, and that is backed by Google, the Gates Foundation, and others, is a technology that allows much easier implementation and time to market to deploy these payment platforms, for example, in Indonesia. Once there is a payment platform of real-time push payments, then the competition can start in providing various types of accounts to the unbanked people. We have seen many ways to do this. We have seen in Africa, for example, mobile money wallets. We have seen in Asia the emergence, mostly through Google Pay, Phone Pay in India, of digital wallets. But also, of course, banks compete here as well with the bank accounts and more traditional offerings from the financial sector. Finally, and as Bapak Agung Purwoko implied and described, the most important, in fact, ultimate goal of all of this is to enable a rich ecosystem of applications that serve the poor using all of these accounts and rails. Gojek is an excellent example in Indonesia. Solar Pay As You Go is an excellent example from Africa. But I think you have mentioned restaurants, transportation services. All of this actually is what is important to make a fully digital economy. And so at the Gates Foundation and at the Mojaloop Foundation, we are, as I mentioned, assisting governments and central banks along this journey and along this framework. We are in touch with Bank of Indonesia on the Gates Foundation side, of course, and we are ready to support the 2025 framework in any way we can, both on the Gates Foundation side and on the Mojaloop Foundation side. Thank you very much. Ultimately, what we hope to achieve is that a woman who has one of these accounts or wallets, that she's able to receive and send money, to pay her bills, to go to the merchant, to purchase goods, and so that she be fully part of the Indonesia economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Costa, for your excellent presentation on the frameworks to fasten the digital financial inclusion. So right now I'm seeing a couple of questions that have been submitted by the participants, and I will pick a few of them which are the most relevant to be answered by the panelists. So maybe I will choose the first question addressed to Mr. Agung. How is the development of Bank Indonesia 2025 Indonesia Payment System Vision? And what is the government of Indonesia's target to keep this policy going forward? And would foreign payment players be allowed to provide payment service for domestic transactions? So this will be addressed by Mr. Agung, and later I will ask some questions as well for Adama and Mr. Costa. So Pak Agung, you have 5 minutes to answer maximum. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mbak Dina. Regarding the question, how is the development of Indonesian payment system vision? We now already finished some of the conceptual designs on some of deliverables. Just like now in working group 2, we just already finished the conceptual design for BI Fast infrastructure for fast payments. And also we just already finished the conceptual design for integrated integrated payment interface integrated payment interface. It will connect to from other source of instrument with a single clearing services at the back end, with the connect to front end and the back end. And here is in the retail payment system, we already finished that. And in QRIS, CRIS, QR Indonesian Code Indonesian Standard, we already reached 4 million merchant now. 4 million merchant which connect to CRIS ecosystem, and CRIS ecosystem here, which is focused on, which is the biggest portion of merchant which connect to CRIS is micro merchant. Here, 2.7 million. So CRIS opened the opportunities for micro merchant, especially in this COVID situation. Economy should open the transformation of business model from offline to online. It will be facilitated with QR. Okay. Maybe back to the slides here. Open API standards in working group 1, Open API standards. Now the process of standard setting is on the pipeline. Bank Indonesia with ASPI, maybe it will explore with ASPI, with Pak Riko maybe. Now we have a collaborative action to make in standard setting. The standard setting body, it consists of 2 parts: technical standard and business standard and business arrangement. We are in pipeline, and also in working group 5, we are already set the draft for regulation, for umbrella regulation for payment system. So for the first phase is a good progress, and I will move to second question. What is government of Indonesia target to keep this policy going forward? Okay. Digitalization become one of government priority to achieve Indonesia Maju as the vision. Thus, BI, Bank Indonesia, together with the government and the industry, try to push the digitalization. For instance, now government focus on hard infrastructure, access to internet, and they also now preparing the data privacy law, while Bank Indonesia, we will focus on hard infrastructure like fast payment and FMI. So here we still have a discussion, talk with industry, and what would the foreign government players be allowed to provide payment services? Of course, we when it comes to how to regulate to foreign player, we take a look at vision number 5. So we will open to foreign player as long as they can hold national interests. So, for example, domestic payment processing. And if they want to play, go to Indonesian market, they have to collaborate with local players. That's for my response for this question. Mbak Dina, silakan.
Okay, thank you, Pak Agung, for the explanation. So next one, I will ask Adama and Costa about one question. what do you think about what are the key elements of financial inclusion that your institution can bring to Indonesia? So maybe Adama can start explaining this one. You have 4 minutes, and then we will follow by Mr. Costa explanation.
Just to be mindful of time, there's a question on the Costa can maybe take that one, and I can maybe the one that the public is asking if you want.
Okay, so I will give this one to Mr. Costa first, and then you can ask other questions. Okay, Mr. Costa, the Zoom is yours.
Yes. So as I mentioned, we are very pleased to observe how Bank of Indonesia is driving the 2025 vision of transformation of the financial services towards digital. We believe that this is the right movement and the right decisions and the right set of programs to be made. What we can offer is essentially advice. We are involved in many similar projects across the planet. For example, we support the Central Bank of Pakistan to deploy a real-time payment platform that connects every single service provider across the country, and that will be operational early next year. We support the Central Bank of the Western African Economic and Monetary Union to do the same. We support Tanzania Central Bank, who is in the process of doing the same rollout of real-time payments across the country. They happen to have chosen to use the Moja Loop technology, which is great. So we can offer essentially advice and observations coming from these other countries, lessons that have been learned, and vice versa, that we would like to collect lessons learned from what is happening in Indonesia so that it can be available for many other countries. As Adama mentioned, we can see the very powerful and broad adoption of real-time payment systems across many countries and regions. And so the pioneers, such as Indonesia, are very important in terms of leading the way and also being able to teach others what has happened. And so that's essentially what we can provide both in terms of rules and regulations and frameworks and operational capacity and management, and on the Rails side, in terms of scaling, operational security, management and prevention of fraud, etc.
Thank you so much for the explanation, Mr. Costa. And so for Adama, there is one question submitted by Nick Brown. So yeah, you can, I can sum up. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I think it was perfect that Costa finished up on the fraud side. I think what is important here to note is that the risks around data, around identity, around fraud were challenges that we were already having when we were building the legacy systems that we have today, or when we were building the banking systems like a few dozens of years ago. So the risk will remain the same, but this is where the rules and regulation and the right policy frameworks come into play. And this is where Bank of Indonesia needs and the policy and the regulation needs to be the right one to mitigate the risk. But that risk should not push us away from embracing the innovation that can come with it. Like as Sir Anggun said before, it's like, how do we mitigate and find the right balance between innovation and risk? And those risks are not new ones. And the fact that Moja Loop is an open source platform exposes us to those risks. However, as I was saying before, the ability to fix the issues at scale comes also with the fact that the platform is open source. So if we identify a security glitch on the platform, when you fix it once for Indonesia, you're fixing it for any other country or country that's using the platform. So your ability to fix those and have that impact at scale is very meaningful. So if Costa want to add something.
Yeah, I would like just to add as well another aspect around this, which is, and myself, I came to the Gates Foundation after a very long career at SWIFT, the global interbank network. And it is an observation that can be made and factually supported that shared platforms in the banking industry, such as SWIFT, but many others, notably like UPI in India and others, are much more fraud proof because they are able to invest in a lot of processes and testing regarding fraud. So that's kind of point one. And point two that we mentioned, SWIFT, for example, used a lot of open source software in their technology base. Nevertheless, the platform itself was under strict control and management. And that is an important point of the rules layer, is that there is strong operational excellence and management, not only regarding fraud, but also availability, because since we are talking about real-time payments, it's important that these be available 24/7. Just wanted to mention that point as well.
And also, I think it's just about embracing maybe open source for payment. We've already embraced open source for computers that are all on, the majority of them on Linux. Also, like a lot of smartphones are running on Android, which is also an open source. So it's all bottom line, it's all about the rules and the regulations.
Okay, thank you so much, Adama and Mr. Costa, for the explanation on the fraud challenges that the platform shall address. So we still have 8 minutes, so I can ask one more questions, perhaps to all the participants. Maybe back to the basic again. So why is it important for you to have an open source platform for payments? And this is going to be addressed for all the participants. And maybe Adama, ladies first, you can start.
Yes, as I said, to be honest, I think what, from a Google perspective, what we really see as a value with this, the open source platform, is this ability to innovate at scale. Like if let's say Indonesia tomorrow develops a very specific functionality for Indonesia, and that's very specific to Southeast Asia, putting it there at disposal of other countries is seamless. And for emerging economies, having this type of opportunities where we sometimes are limited in terms of resources, and we also have a lot of other critical agendas to drive, I think is important, especially at the pace that we need to respond to this challenging situation. When you look at COVID today, and how countries have been, like, the level of development in terms of payment was very correlated to how a country was able to respond. So I think for emerging economies, having the possibility to leverage an open source platform is very important. And I think the second point that I would say is, like, most of the payment models and infrastructures that we have are models that we inherited from the Western world. And I see the open source model as an opportunity for emerging countries, and I'm speaking for my own experience from being from Africa, to actually design what is right for our users and right for our countries. And providing that platform and enabling local developers, local fintechs to be able to build what is relevant for Indonesian users, Thai users, or users in Africa. And I find that a unique opportunity. to be able to leapfrog in this space.
So thank you, Adama. And next one, I will welcome Pak Agung for answering these questions. Pak Agung, sorry, the microphone is mute.
Okay, regarding the open source, in my personal views, it's only one of alternative to provide the services in the digitalization era. So for central banks, we have to look back to our five vision in how to use and how to strike the right balance between innovation and risk. And so we cannot see as what in the one side in technology, but also we need to see another view from competition, from customer protection, and also for policy context for every country, just like Indonesia. Therefore, we study, we talk to industry, we talk to other central bank, and also maybe we can talk to Mr. Perik and Mr. Dialog in how to formulate the best solution for Indonesian payment system in 2025. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Agung. So next one, of course, we will give the floor to Mr. Costa to answer. So we have approximately 3 minutes before the room's going to be merged again.
Yeah. I think everything has been said. I just want to add one additional point of importance, which is sovereignty. We observe, of course, when real-time payment platforms are being deployed, that countries look at this as strategic national assets and want to have full control over the data the payment data that is being carried around by the payment platform, which is totally great and understandable. One perhaps less understood aspect is also to have control of the code, the actual computer code that constitutes this real-time payment platform, so that the country has control over this for the future as well, and not be essentially locked in another system that they don't have control of in the long term. And we have seen this as one of the powerful aspects of what central banks and governments look at when considering real-time payment platforms.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Costa. So we still have 3 minutes for this discussion. Maybe I will ask one last question. It's actually a follow-up question for that question that's already answered by Mr. Agung. So are there any particular requirements or standards for foreign payment services to be able to provide domestic transaction? So maybe you could share in 2 minutes for us, Pak Agung.
If foreign players want to play a role in Indonesia, they should comply with the regulation, of course, and comply with the standards. As I mentioned, comply with the standard if they play in area open API, they should comply with company API which is now in pipeline, and also if CRIS, they also comply with CRIS standards and so on, and also we comply to the regulation about the ownership ratio of the ownership and so on. So I think it's open to foreign players if they won't come to Indonesia.
Yeah, so thank you, Pa Agung, for the message. It's actually the wrap-up message that the Central Bank of Indonesia views this e-payment ecosystem as an open ecosystem. So other foreign players can join here as well as long as they comply to the Indonesian regulation and also serve our national interest. So I will wrap up as that. So we still have 1 more minute. Maybe I will try to sum up this discussion. So the key elements for the inclusivity that can be supported by other countries' institutions here, it's through the advisory, through lesson learned in the other country, for example, on the regulations, capacity management, and also scaling, operational security, and also fraud prevention. So I see that there's some of the other members from the breakout session 2 already here, but yeah, we will wait for all of the other sessions. Okay, in 20 seconds, they will be joining here with us. So we will be merged in one room again. We will wait before we start the consolidation session. So I see that the number is already growing here. So yeah, we have the other breakout sessions in one room. So I will start the consolidations from both breakout rooms. What I can sum up is the multi-stakeholders collaboration is important in enabling shared infrastructure for e-payment. For example, by allowing foreign players, as long as they serve the national interests and collaborate together with the local business here, and also they can provide other support such as advisory through lessons learned in other country, on the regulations and also capacity management, also scaling operational security, and the most important is fraud prevention. But also there are still several challenges in addition to the fraud challenges. For example, the security glitch in the open sources. So it has to be managed under strict control and management. And also we would like to highlight on the balance between innovation and policy so that it will create more benefit and economic opportunity for all stakeholders here. So maybe I can pass the microphone to Galuh to present the summary of session 2.
Thank you, Madina. It seems that you had a very nice and great discussions on e-payment there. And as for us, we were actually rushing to get back to this main room, as we also had a very interesting discussions with all the panelists. We have so much to say about the discussions, but then to sum it all up, we were all agreeing that we know that e-signature is not a new technology, but it wasn't until probably last year or a few years that e-signature finally gained recognition in Indonesia. And with its relatively new implementations, then comes that the big questions about its legality and also its credibility. And here in Indonesia, the government has actually engaged both public and private sector to provide digital signature. And we also believe that private sector then should work as closely as possible with the public sector to ensure their needs are met. And also the adoption of e-signature seems to be an absolutely key to a seamless digital economy today. So it is very interesting to see its development in Indonesia, so that people can electronically sign with confidence. Okay, I think we can continue our discussions in the Slack room. And I think we come to the end of the discussions. Again, I would like to say thank you for all the panelists for their informative and interesting talk. To the audience also for your active participations, and of course to the interpreters for always helping us out. Now I pass the floor back to our MC, Mbak Antia.
Okay, thank you, Galuh, and also thank you, Dina, for helping moderate those sessions. Thank you also once again to our wonderful panelists and also to you, the participants, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for Digital Week. We've actually had more than 700 total participations from those who have joined in through Zoom and our YouTube live streams for the sessions throughout Digital Week. Participation or attendees, sorry, have come from various government ministries like the Ministry of Finance, Industry, Trade, Agriculture, and Coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs, as well as Indonesia's Parliament, as well as some of you from the private sector, especially some companies who have themselves contributed in offering and growing digital service for Indonesia. Not to mention the various civil society organization, development agency, and also journalists who have joined us these past 4 days. We've seen some interesting conversations happening as well in the virtual discussion room, where I last saw had more than 100 people there, if I'm not mistaken. And we will actually be keeping the virtual discussion room open until Sunday. So please, if you have the time, feel free to continue any discussions that you might be having there or following up on new contacts that you might have made throughout the conference. We'll also be sending a survey to you soon, and we would love and appreciate your feedback on what your experience has been throughout Digi Week. Lastly, we hope the conference has been able to bring the public and private sector closer together to discuss many of the important issues that concern Indonesia's digital economy. With the pandemic, digital tools have been an important aspect for millions of people across Indonesia to help them support in their daily lives and also their livelihoods. So it is really important that we continue to work together to ensure a responsible digital ecosystem that also encourages the positive innovations that we've seen in the country in recent years. So on behalf of CIPS, it has been a pleasure to spend the last 4 days with you throughout Digital Week, developing Indonesia's digital economy through public-private dialogue. We would love to keep the conversation going, and of course, feel free to reach out to CIPS as well. We are always open to continue the conversation with you and open to opportunities where we can work together to make Indonesia a more prosperous country. So thank you, terima kasih. Enjoy your Friday evening, and I wish you all a very good weekend. Selamat sore dan sampai jumpa.